Okay, so hear me out. I have an idea. It's a little bit retarded and it's not very well fleshed out, but we have school years in elementary and high school and middle school, and the youngest kid in the class is born in December 31st, and the oldest kid in the class is born in January 1st. And so the youngest kid in the class has a really big advantage over the rest of the kids because he basically gets an entire year of a head start. If that December baby had been born 1 month later in January, then they would be basically pushed back an entire year, which is what the literal January baby experiences, right? They're the oldest in the class, but it's kind of like they were pushed back an entire year because if the January baby had been born in November or December, then they would be the youngest kid in the class and they would get an entire year of a head start in terms of their studies. So, how do we solve this? Well, my first reaction was, what if we move the dates? So maybe you count like July 1st as the oldest kid and then June 30th of the next year as like the youngest kid. But then I realized like the problem still persists. The youngest kid in the classroom is about a year younger than the oldest kid in the classroom. So what we have to change is not where it starts and where it ends, but the duration, or the amount of months that a specific grade has. So instead of having an entire grade, for example, grade 8, where the kids are from anywhere from January 1st to January 31st, what if we instead split 8th grade into two parts? The first part is a classroom that has all the babies born from January 1st to July 1st or June 30th. And then that second half of that 8th grade, quote unquote, would have all the babies born in the second half of the year, so from July 1st to December 31st. So now in each of those two classrooms, the maximum age gap between the oldest student and the youngest student, in the first classroom it would be from January 1st to June 30th, so 6 months would be the maximum. And then in the second class, again it would be 6 months the maximum, this time from July 1st to December 31st. This would mean a couple of things would have to change as well. So instead of like grades 1 through 12 and there being like 12 grades, we would need to have double the amount, so 24 grades. And basically you would move up a grade at the end of each semester, not at the end of each school year. And the other thing that would have to change is people would be entering and exiting the school in a specific grade at any of the two semesters. So for example, the January baby wouldn't have to wait all the way until September to start their school year. Instead, that January baby can start their school year in that winter semester that starts in January. And in the same way, people wouldn't be exiting 12th grade at the same time. Because remember that the last grade now would be called the 24th grade, but not everyone would be leaving the 24th grade at the end of the winter semester. Some people might do that 24th grade during the fall semester. And so basically you have to have each grade start and end in each semester. And like I said, this isn't a super fleshed out idea, so and I'm kind of allergic to like finishing the thought. But basically I initially thought this was like there's something here, there's some gold or some gem hidden in this kind of line of thinking. But then I remembered like, okay, but school isn't all about like getting your studies as fast as possible. It's also about like building good people, good characters, making friends, having fun, that kind of stuff. And then I also thought, well, wouldn't you be cutting down like your classmates in half? But then I realized like they already do that. Like for me, they always divided a specific grade within like 2 or 3 classrooms. And each classroom had anywhere from 20 to 30 students. It's just that right now they do that, but they divide the students randomly. So they just say, oh, hey, you randomly get to go to this classroom, and then your other friend randomly gets assigned to the other classroom. And these two classrooms have randomly assigned students, but in total, they have 12 months of difference worth of students. You have the January babies all the way up to the December babies. And so now that I'm realizing that like we were already dividing classrooms, wouldn't it kind of be the same thing anyways? Like we would still be dividing students into 2 or 3 classrooms. The difference is instead of students being randomly divided, they would be divided based on which half of the year they were born in. And also, like I said, people would enter each new grade at the start of each new semester, and they would leave that grade at the end of that semester. So in that way, you are kind of like cutting off your grade in half, like your grade mates. I don't know what you would call them, but all the students in your grade, you would be cutting them by half. But it's just that like what was previously grade 1 is now grade 1 and 2. With the two main differences being that in this new format, the January to June babies don't have to wait all the way until September to start their grade. They can instead start in the January semester. And the second main difference is that the biggest head start that any student in any grade can have over another student in that grade can only be up to 6 months. So with the current system that we have right now, a December baby has a 12-month head start over a January baby. But with this new format, where January to June babies are in one grade and July to December babies are in another grade, the biggest head start that somebody in the January to June babies can have is the June baby having a 6-month advantage over the January baby. And then in the July to December grade, the biggest head start would be the December baby having a 6-month advantage over the July baby. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm actually really interested in this one because I know the idea is kind of retarded, but I think there is some magic in there. And yeah, I want to know why you think this wouldn't work, or what you would see are the problems, what you could see as the possible problems. Like I think, for example, not all babies were born in the same, like I'm pretty sure there's specific months where there's more babies born than others. For example, in November, there's like a lot of November babies because, you do the math, you go 9 months before. What was 9 months before November? February 14th, ladies and gentlemen. In other words, a lot of babies are created and made around Valentine's Day. And I don't have the stat or anything about like which months in the distribution like more babies are born in or whatever, but this is just like my intuition in terms of like there might be this kind of like distribution problem. But I have noticed that like people are born in November more commonly than other months. But yeah, let me know what you think and you see are the possible problems that would arise if we did this new system where we have 24 grades instead of 12, and each new grade starts and ends within that semester. Where the January to June babies are starting in the winter semester, and the July to December babies are starting in the fall semester. Why do you think this wouldn't work, or do you think this is a brilliant idea? Let me know.